Is he avoidant?
Or does he not like you?
Or does he hate you?
Or do they just hate you?
Is he avoidant, or have you not cultivated an environment conducive to him opening up?
Oh, that's a big one.
Maybe every time he tries to open up, you're not like catching those emotional bids. You invalidate him. You try to correct his feeling. You're like, maybe you're not supposed to feel that way. It's like, oh, well.
Yeah. No, that's definitely like a hard one to identify with yourself and a hard pill to swallow as well. Of like, yeah, like I need this person to open up and like be vulnerable with me. But yeah, are you creating in this context, like a safe space is necessary, right? Like, are you creating a space in which they feel safe to do so?
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Intellectual Podcast, where we're just putting just a little dash of nuance to the polarizing conversations on the internet. I'm Jem.
And I'm Renee.
And we're your hosts for today, where I have a completely valid gripe with the world right now. I'm like this close.
Okay.
I'm this close to being just over mental health.
Damn.
I think it's a sham. I think it's ridiculous. All you people are getting too much. I think we're putting too much emphasis
You said
on
mental health
health.
is a sham. For sure.
Hot take of the day.
No, literally, like started off hot. You didn't even prepare us for anything. Just didn't ease it in. No, nothing.
No lube, no nothing. Just straight, unzipped, shove that shit in.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, no. I think that people are using mental health or the idea of mental health in a way that no longer supports my ability to care about it.
Right. The terms have lost their meaning entirely.
They have. So it's not me, it's you.
Yeah.
It's you guys.
It's you. We as a society have done this to ourselves.
Yeah.
100%.
And now I can't care. And if you haven't noticed by now, we're going to be talking about the pitfalls of terminology and why you need to stop using these psychological terms to describe your thing.
You're not qualified.
Case in point. Talking about, I didn't eat people into it. Good God. You're not ouch.
You are not qualified.
Okay.
Oh
Jesus Christ. Sorry, Becky.
Yeah.
Maybe Brad was not a narcissist. maybe you just have communication problems. Yeah, think about that.
Oh, no.
Think about that. Hopefully, Becky's listened to our thing because I'd be bad-mouthing Susans and Becky. Like, it's the
so
thing to
hardcore.
do.
Like, what did they do to
crazy
you?
To me. Nothing.
If you've been wronged by a Becky, please call this hotline.
I have things to say about them. Yeah,
Oh,
no.
God.
I don't know. I know what it is. It's just like, I feel like those are the most generic names.
Yeah, no,
I've never
100%.
once in my life met a Susan or a Becky.
Literally never.
Do they even exist?
No, I'm not sure.
See?
I'm not
See,
sure.
exactly.
They're literally an idea, not real.
Yikes. Could you imagine? Again, if you're a Becky or a Susan listening to this,
God.
I'm not sorry. So moving right the freak along. Why do people feel the need to use these terms?
Yeah, I mean,
it's a very recent phenomenon.
Totally. And very characteristic of like our generation as well, right? So like just even the topic of mental health and the openness about it, the openness about like, not even just like if you have some like crazy chronic, like you got BPD or something like that, but just like normal human like
anxiety,
depression and like, and anxiety, day to day like stresses and whatnot, have come into the fold of society. And this is no secret that like we've kind of brought this in and, have completely flipped, as a generation, we flipped it on its head. And, now we are open about these things and we speak about our problems and our issues. We don't bottle things in and like just take shit and all that good stuff. And usually, what comes with change and trying to usher in a new age is things kind of tend to go into an extreme.
Yeah.
We
like to overcorrect.
Exactly. We as humans are great overcorrectors for sure. Do we ever like side thing?
Right.
Do we ever like middle correct? I don't.
No.
I think it's either in society, like in history, like historically in history or whatever.
Historically in history.
Yeah, I know my brain. Look, holding on by a thread. Anyways.
Right.
We either are on like one side that's like extreme or the other. And it's always like, oh, well, you know, things have to go to the extreme before they find like the median. But do they ever get to the median?
Do they need to be at the extreme? So we all know what the medium is.
Yeah.
We just do the opposite.
Well, I don't think we ever have like, because even I have been guilty of saying this, like, oh, well, society has to kind of swing to this extreme before we kind of level out. And then we'll be in that middle spot where it's like a healthy middle. I don't know that that's necessarily true.
Wait, no, I know why.
Why?
I know why.
Why do you think?
Because humans suck at change. So we're very resistant to it. So I don't think people want to be on the opposite overcorrected extreme of things, but you're meeting so much resistance from the status quo that in order to have a voice about anything, you'd have to be the exact opposite to be heard. Because imagine something really polarizing like civil rights.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Very black and white issue, very like we need to stop like treating people like this. It's like, oh no, like we need to be like in the middle of that, like it's okay. Like it's like we just need to like create these policies that work for everyone and it's fine. Like no one's gonna hear that in 1965.
Right.
You have to be like
convincing
and aggressive and Black
Grab
Lives
people's
Matters type
attention.
stuff. So
yeah. No, that's true. That is very true. It's like it really like to like motivate and to move people into action, you kind of have to have like extreme or radical like speak or language and whatnot. I always see it too as like, you know, when you get like a really big group of people together and you're like, all right, everybody clap on beat, clap. If you keep doing that for long enough, the clap will slowly get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. Like people, like we can't stay like on the beat as like, even if like everyone is like relatively like musically inclined, it's hard to stay on beat. You end up just like, it's human nature to just like quicken the pace and go faster and faster.
like a sound.
Exactly. And so I almost see it like visually as like that, where like we just struggle to stay in that like almost like neutral like middle space. We just tend to like veer off into the extremes of things.
But over time, the universe corrects itself.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
balance in the universe for sure.
We love that at least.
Yeah, you know.
But why can't we do it ourselves?
Like a flood or something.
Whoa! Whoa, the great equalizer, right? The biblical flood. That'll do it, I suppose. No one's fighting anymore. We all drown at the exact same time, for sure.
Oh my god.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yes.
But at what cost?
At what cost?
That
It's both their lives.
All right. This is what happens when you're on 2 hours of sleep and one other episode in. So
yeah, I have not slept a lot at all.
Sorry, not sorry. This is the version of us you're getting today. Did you say that we're the hosts for today? I think I said that, right? Did I? Who knows?
Yeah, we did.
See?
So not
See?
forgetting.
this is what we're doing. But
Oh my God.
there's a phenomenon. Back to the subject matter at hand. There is a phenomenon we find ourselves in that people feel the need to use these very, very well constructed and well thought out and well practiced terms that you find in the psychological practice, psychology and therapy and all that stuff. They'll take therapy language and they'll take it out of context and they'll use it to describe situations and phenomenon that don't necessarily what they're describing.
Yeah.
You have a little disagreement with your friend and now all of a sudden they're crossing your boundaries.
Right.
You have a little argument with your mother and now she's a narcissist.
Right.
Like, you know, there's a lot of moms that are narcissists, but that's neither here nor there. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. I find that to be a little bit problematic.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's also just like people like there's like when interacting with different people and humans, there are characteristics of things, right? So people can have like characteristics of narcissism, right? I sure do. I know that for a fact. Withhold my narcissism all the time.
I plead the fifth. That's neither here nor there.
Just kidding. Just kidding. But you can have like these like traits of like narcissism, right? Or like in a moment, maybe someone is acting in a manipulative way towards you in conversation or whatnot, or like is like crossing a boundary, etc. Like in a moment of like conflict, but to then like prescribe like these blanket statements onto a person because of a moment or maybe even several moments, honestly, it doesn't mean that they are that thing, right?
Humans are complex.
Humans behave poorly. Does not mean that they are like a sociopath. Does not mean they're like a like we keep saying, like a narcissist. Doesn't mean they gaslit you. You know, were they, like I said, were they manipulative? Maybe. Were they like not considerate of you in that moment? Probably. But like,
do they have a mental disorder?
Like, right, like we said at the beginning, you were not qualified
probably
to make that statement. Right. And like I said before too, it's like it's taken the wind out of its sails. Like the word doesn't even mean what it means anymore.
You hear that and you're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just a normal dude.
No, exactly.
He was a narcissist. Oh, so you guys had a falling out. For
yeah.
Sure.
Like we've taken like these like extreme terms and like completely diluted them, but then still kind of mentally apply those extreme definitions to the thing.
Exactly.
You know?
Which is very interesting because I don't want to demonize therapy speak, because in the right context, those words, those definitions, all those classifications are very important between the patient and the therapist. As a therapist, you need these things to classify and understand what these people are going through.
Right.
So if you are talking with a person who's going through a depressive episode or who has anxiety, you use these terms to identify the nature of their symptoms so you can correctly treat them. Right. Within that context, it's not necessarily as destructive as, actually inversely, it's completely constructive to utilize these terms in that way for that purpose. Right. When does it become a problem? When you take it out of that context. And naturally, social media is to blame for this, right? Because
not the infographics.
Right. And it's so consumable and you love it, like Psych2Go and like all those things where you learn all these things, and they were designed, like, no shade to any of these like psychology pages or influencers or anything, because they're doing God's work. Right. Educating the masses about these things, which are, it's useful information to know. Yeah. We do need to know like narcissistic traits. We do need to know how to formulate boundaries. We do need to know how to prioritize their needs. Like these are all positive things, right?
Especially in a world where like therapy is expensive and like not everyone has access to that level of like care and like treatment. So yeah, it builds an understanding that you can access without needing to actually go to therapy.
But social media is far too quick. It's far too ubiquitous. Yeah. Without the necessary nuance that is in place within the long years of education that you go through to be a therapist, to be a psychologist. You have the context of what these terms mean and what they're used for. Right. Outside of context, when you're just telling people what these things are, they'll easily and naturally apply that to their own lives. And when you're exhibiting the traits, like you were saying, people existing with a narcissistic trait, like, oh, maybe they are being a little selfish in this moment. Yeah. You'll identify that and be, oh, they're narcissistic because that's what you heard, that's what you learned. Right. And you're shifting what was well-intentioned into something that is a little less useful, especially for what you're trying to do. Because in those situations when someone's being selfish, you don't need necessarily for them to be diagnosed in a certain way, right? They don't need to be classified. They don't need to be helped you know?
Right. For you to see a behavior and not like it. You know what I mean? Like you can be like, oh, this person did this to me. I don't enjoy that. Let me have a conversation. Let me distance
Right.
myself. You don't need to classify them as anything to like understand what's going on.
When truly the nature of what you want to happen is that you don't want that behavior to continue.
Right.
And you should just like communicating that stuff, whatever you want, whatever you need, however you want to do it. Just be like, yo, like, I feel like that's pretty selfish that you're doing like that. XYZ that I would prefer, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, homeboy like, oh, I didn't know I was being that way. My bad, fam.
My bad.
And now you have a solution to the problem that's going to be exploded in your mind.
Right.
Call that dude a narcissist. That's what he is. And it's really hard to argue with these terms. They're designed with that in mind, with the hierarchy of these terms, right? You have the psychologist, the therapist, and the patient.
Right.
If the therapist is talking about like, yeah, no, you have like some crazy attachment style, this, that, and the other, you're not going to be like, nah, fam, that ain't me. You're going to listen to that. You're going to think about that. You're going to try to explore what that means.
Right.
And that's extremely dangerous when you're not utilizing it in the proper context.
Yeah, or potentially like accurately as
Right.
well. Right. And I mean, that being said, I think like people use this like therapy speak essentially. The people that use it in this way that's ultimately harmful to whatever interaction they're trying to like engage in or not engage in or whatnot. It's like you're saying, this therapy speak, these definitions, these terms were utilized as an effective way of like understanding human behavior and phenomenons and connections, etc. And when people like, at least in the examples that like I've seen of it on the internet or in my own personal life, it's like a way for people use it in a way to create distance, to deflect blame away from them, whatever actions they have maybe engaging in that situation. And it, like you were saying, it ultimately has like this flip flop effect where it's now like very like cold and just like I was saying, like you're deflecting. You're like, oh well, they're just a narcissist, so like I just like I can't interact in that and whatnot. Or you know, he was gaslighting me, so like I just like I can't do this. This guy is like just absolutely horrible. And then like potentially like, you know, tarnishing or like maybe not completely tarnishing how much like it's like word being spread about this person, but like this person that you're interacting may not be like maybe not gaslighting you, but maybe wasn't like a narcissist and all these things. They weren't acting in like the best possible way in that moment or in several moments. But to like just like write it off, I think as we all constantly talk about, like humans are complex and like it's not just that simple why they were like behaving in that way or whatnot. And it leaves you in a position where you don't have to take any responsibility for anything. And you can kind of exist in like this like victim mentality almost, at least in the ways that I have seen people use it. Right. And obviously like I have like examples of that, but
You want to
Sure. Jonah Hill.
Oh yeah.
The Jonah Hill. I think this is like a prime example. This happened like several months ago.
We talked about it too when it was going on.
Yeah, exactly. His girlfriend or ex-girlfriend at the time had released text of their interaction where it was really like for the conversation where this is a prime example of like the overuse of like boundaries and what that means. Because I think at the time we said it that like we were like releasing like private text messages
That's
like to
weird.
the public. Like, why are we doing that? Like, you know, and granted, he's a public figure and maybe she felt some sort of like responsibility to expose his character because he has such
crazy.
a likable public image.
That's wild.
Yeah, which is wild. But to that point though, like the things that he was saying were, you know, things like, oh, well, I don't want you surfing with men, even though she was like a surf instructor, just a surfing human. He didn't want her like wearing a bikini. Once again, her job is water.
Right.
He didn't want her, what else? He said that some of the women that she interacted with, some of the friends that she had, essentially like implying that they were like party girls and not good influences, and he didn't want her hanging out with them. And he framed all of it in like the framework of like, these are my boundaries. This is, if you're going to be with me, this is what I want from a lifelong partner. This is what it is. You like take it or leave it type of deal.
And how can you argue with a person's boundaries?
Exactly.
With a person that you actually want to be with the person that you're actually like caring about or trying to cultivate a relationship with. It's
right.
like, oh, that's the danger, right?
Yeah.
That's a trigger word.
Yeah.
Immediately, like boundaries, oh, like let me take a step back.
Totally.
And see what's happening. But are those boundaries actually boundaries useful to have within the context of the interaction?
Right.
Like, all intents and purposes, you can have whatever boundary you want to have.
Yeah, literally,
Technically,
the sky's your limit, like
right.
at this point.
100%. The danger is, what are boundaries actually for? People have misconstrued the definition. They misconstrue the definition in the sense that everyone thinks that boundaries are things that you have to like keep away from yourself, protect yourself and stuff like that. When in actuality, a boundary is the space where you can internalize and assess yourself in relation to the environment around you.
Right.
So if your boundary has to do with the behavior of another person in the sense that not necessarily how they're acting to you, like the way that they're speaking to you, the way that they're interacting with you, but like just what they're doing with themselves, like wearing a bikini at the beach, that stops being a boundary.
Right.
It's something else.
Yeah.
You're using that to control the situation. You're using that to do something completely different than what the term boundary was intended to do.
Right.
Right.
And it's like, even just in that situation, it's so odd because it's not like when they started dating, she wasn't a surfing instructor, that this wasn't her career and her job, that there weren't bikini photos on her Instagram already prior to them getting into a relationship. So it then begs the question, like, right, where it's like, not really begs the question, but it makes it obvious that it's really more so a tool of control rather than actual boundary setting. Because why would you interact with someone who you look on their page and you're like, oh, well, they engage in social media in a way that I wouldn't be comfortable with, that my partner would do? It'd be like a similar, like, I mean, a more extreme example of this, like you, like someone who's like religious or like, say, like Muslim. Okay, like if they're of the belief that like they want their wife to like wear like a like head covering, you wouldn't interact with like a Muslim woman who didn't.
Right.
Just simple as that. Like you make it easy for yourself. You know what I mean?
You can have a preference for that.
Yeah.
But then if you do have a preference for that, why would you engage a person that's clearly outside of that preference?
Outside of that preference.
Then frame that preference as a boundary.
Yeah.
Definitely trying to be
because it's not really a
controlling.
boundary.
It's not. It's not. It can't be.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to control another person's behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
In relation to themselves and not you, which is crazy to me.
No, it's wild.
And the more we talk about it, the more that point is illustrated, right? That what is actually being articulated when we use these terms out of context is that you're trying to gain some, like you're trying to one up a person.
Some like moral, like maybe not moral, but like, I don't know, some superior,
some
like upper hand.
Upper hand, yeah. You're trying to do some sort of upper hand for whatever reason. It can be a variety of different reasons, but your intentions are less than noble, whether you realize it or not.
Totally.
Because like, not to say that everybody that uses therapy speak is nefarious, right? Because a lot of the times, again, in and of itself, the terminology is designed to help you better articulate phenomena that's happening within your mind in relation to other people.
Yeah.
That is the goal of therapy speak.
Right.
That's the goal of the terminology. But when you use that terminology out of the context with the people that you're interacting with, you're robbing them of that interaction. It's a very one-sided interaction when you're over here trying to get the upper hand, trying to one-up them. Like you're having an issue with a person, and the first thing you say is like you don't have the emotional bandwidth for something, or you it's
dismissive.
It's dismissive. It's not really taking into account the situation that's happening, and it's not giving an opportunity for like real, genuine interaction to occur.
Yeah,
it's not
real, like,
an authentic way of expressing yourself.
Yeah.
It's very, very cold and removed.
Yeah.
And unempathetic.
Right.
And it really is, in my opinion, ruining people's potential interactions.
Yeah.
Because the first fight you guys have, what are you doing? Talking about how they're gaslighting you, how they're being a narcissist, how they're attached, they're avoidant attachment, all that stuff. And the moment you lead with that, you can't argue against the terminology.
Yeah.
It's really hard. It's like, oh, you're gaslighting me. The first time you're accused about that, you're just going to be like, am I gaslighting you?
Right.
When in reality, you're just disagreeing with what point they're trying to make, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, so when I disagree with what you think is your truth,
Right.
all of a sudden now I'm gaslighting you.
Yeah. Like that doesn't.
Like, no, we're having a conversation.
Right. And like you're saying, it robs that other person from being able to truly engage in like meaningful discussion about it, right? Like, yeah, like what are you going to say to that at that point? And that's why I also think like to some degree, like when people use this therapy speak to such like an aggressive degree, it's being used in a way that like is like deflecting, is also just like in that victim mentality. It keeps like you and yourself at like the center of that like conflict, or it keeps you at the center of your reality or whatever. It doesn't allow or leave any room for any other complex human to exist, right? They must be like simple and straightforward. I can be the only one with complex emotions and complex feelings and make mistakes and all these sorts of things. And whether that's like intentional or not, because I see it even, like with my, some of my girlfriends, I hear that, oh, well, he was just like totally gaslighting me. Like, and it's like, well, that's like, it, like I said, it's like dismissive. It's like, well, there may be something more meaningful, not to say that he didn't treat you poorly by no means, right? But like, there's something you're missing there in being able to understand the other person, understanding maybe the sorts of like interactions or ways that people behave that maybe you want to avoid in the future. Like, if you don't really address it and understand what's happening there, whether with that person or not, and just kind of chalk it up to like, oh, they're just a narcissist, then like that's like behavior you can't really maybe like avoid in the future, or cultivate a good conversation with that person for them to grow. Not that that's your responsibility entirely, but we're human to human. We should help each other grow and be better, you know?
If you claim to care about these people.
Exactly.
And that in your point lies my apprehension with this whole mental health situation, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it's good that we've progressed to this understanding that mental health is important and people don't have to be hanging themselves from chandeliers because they can't take it anymore because they have no one to talk to and all this stuff,
100%.
right? Being vulnerable, being authentic, being open, very important things to do. But somewhere along the line, we got influenced by this hyper individualistic culture that we're a part of.
Totally.
So like you were saying, yourself is prioritized. The individual, your mental health is more important than everybody else's mental health.
Yeah.
So now you are using and finding and handpicking the frameworks and the terminology and the situations that benefit your view of the situation.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're using, you're trying to find how avoidant people interact so that you can better understand how to like interact with someone. You're using that as a way to like justify your position and like save yourself from the potential disappointment that you would have if you like accepted that you and took accountability that you interacted with this person and like he's not perfect, but it's so much easier to be like, instead of like dealing with that hurt and facing that pain, be like, well, it didn't matter anyway. Just invalidate the entire thing because he was a narcissist, he gaslit me, he's avoidant, he's this, he's that, he's the other.
Or even like what's used against women, because I feel like we're using a lot of like she's crazy, like she's unstable, like that sort of language.
Like she's not emotionally available.
Yeah.
She's not
like,
emotionally intelligent.
Right. Like she's bipolar, you know, all these sorts of things. Like that language being used, it's
like, is she bipolar? Or is she expressing herself?
Yeah.
From something that you're doing?
Yeah.
Did you do something to make her pissed off?
Right.
Is she just angry?
Are you withholding something from her?
Right.
And she's trying to address it, and you're not, like, you know, like you're being cold to her or whatnot, and not allowing her to like engage with you in a vulnerable way or whatnot.
Precisely.
And it's frustrating.
All these things can be true at the same time, and I'm just so baffled why people don't want to like look at that.
Yeah.
It's not easier to, at least not in my brain, to be like, oh, she was like a narcissist, or oh, she was this, that, and the other. For me, I'm like always trying to meet people where they are.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, so how can we, based on how you're feeling, how can we rectify this? How can we move forward in this? If we want to keep having this connection.
Right.
Because if we don't, then continue to do what you're doing.
Right.
Invalidating and dismissing people and being unempathetic, because that's exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Right.
People are just going to stop interacting. You end the conversation the moment you classify someone as a thing. There's nowhere else to go, because that's a actual phenomenon. A narcissist is a set of behavior that you can't resist. It's a mental disorder.
Right.
Why is the dude that you're just dating casually all of a sudden have this whole mental disorder that he can't escape from? Like, there's no path forward for you guys now because of all of a sudden he's a narcissist, he's crazy. Like, oh my goodness, that's insane to me.
Yeah, no, 100%. Maybe it's just a not compatible situation, you know?
And that's perfectly okay.
Or maybe you need to look within, sister. Because even like it happens all the time too with friendships, right? It's like not just relationships where people are doing this to one another, right? Like doing this to friends specifically, of like the like emotional, like I just don't have like the emotional like bandwidth to
I'm
like
not going to do the emotional labor of explaining that to you.
Yeah, or like I just like can't like help you because I like have a lot going on in my life. And it's like, okay, if you're that friend who's like constantly having a lot going on in her life and can never be there for your other friends, maybe you're the like self-centered narcissist. Just kidding.
Whoa. Maybe you're the narcissist. Oh, that's what we're doing right now. Okay.
But like maybe like you need to like look within, you know, like, and that's the other thing. Like there's no introspection of your behavior when you like make these statements, like outside of like, well, I have to like take care of my needs, and yeah, yes, you should.
Sure,
you 100%.
You're not wrong,
right? But like you're. You're being mean to people. That was just like
you're just being so mean.
I could put this so many ways, but you're just being mean. Yeah. You're being mean to like these people that you claim to care about. You're being dismissive. And granted, there's definitely worlds where like then this language, like the therapy speak, becomes like necessary and useful. It's not as if like this like very like cold, like rigid language is not like necessary in certain situations. Say you do have a friend who you've tried to communicate, like maybe you do have someone who just like you literally uses you to vent and dump their shit on, and like they're not really there for you, etc. And you try to communicate with them several times, and like they're not really accepting or hearing what you're trying to say, and eventually it gets to a point where you do have to be like hardcore boundary. I cannot be there for you right now, you know, and you having to use that cold language. There's definitely a world in like the day-to-day world outside of a therapy session where this sort of language is necessary and useful. You know, if you have like a mom or a parent who's like a narcissist or like
a helicopter parent.
Yeah, exactly.
Not respecting your newfound adultness.
Yeah, not respecting your boundaries, etc. And you having to but that's the thing, is like it's more so characteristic of you maybe having to communicate in a more like human way over and over again before it gets to that point of having to be like, boom, here it is, right? And even then, you're not trying to diagnose that person in that.
You're not just calling them anything.
Yeah, exactly. You're just you're setting it like a valid boundary at that point, right?
I can't deal with this right now. It's not good for my mental health.
Right, exactly.
And then going from there.
Yeah, no, 100%. But yeah, I think people, I think even with boundaries, see it I think they need to see it more. I think I've said this before on like one of our really early on episodes. I think it was like the dating series or something, but I had said something to the effect of like, you set boundaries to like bring people in, not keep people out. You know, they're not meant, as you said, to be this box and this wall to keep people away and keep them at a distance. They are so that you can bring people in and like allow for connection and cultivate intimacy in your relationships and connectivity in your friendships and all these sorts of things.
And understand like how you operate in relation to all these people. Because a boundless life just has you going with the flow, flip-flopping everywhere and not knowing what the heck is going on.
Yeah, that's
like having
insane.
boundaries just establishes like who you are and what you value as a person. It's not something to project on other people.
Right.
And it's not meant to be so rigid.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be rigid. I think people, and I think the error too, especially with boundaries specifically, it's that once they're said, they're just in stone. There's there's no like conversation about it. There's no what this means to you. Like, is this really, there's no conversation around it. You just like, once I say it's a boundary, we can't talk about it anymore. And if you cross it, that's that. You have no more access to me. And like, they're meant to be flexible.
Yeah.
Because life and human interaction not meant to be 100% convenient for you all the time.
Right.
Sometimes you're going to have to give a little more than you get and vice versa. You're not a perfect human being. Sometimes you're always doing, you're sometimes doing some things that you require a little more from other people.
Yeah.
And the people that are helping you are not doing that because it's convenient for them. They're doing that because that's life.
Yeah, like sometimes you make allowances for the people that you love in moments of like need or support or like in like maybe like a momentary release of boundaries because you see that the person's like triggered or distressed or upset in some way, and like you know, that's just like, it's just like interacting with other humans. And also boundaries grow and evolve as you grow and evolve and are different for different people.
Right.
And
that part too.
Yeah. Like
different for different people.
It doesn't apply everywhere to everyone. Also too, like people, like the general person is not responsible to, okay, this is going to sound bad initially, but like I actually did post this on our social media, something about this. People are not, like, the general human is not going to know or understand your boundaries or your things. So like they're not responsible for that. Right. The thing that I had posted was you are the only person responsible for your triggers, right? Like if someone in like you're at Starbucks, and I really can't think of like an example of like something that would like trigger you, but like, you know, like even, okay, maybe like using the example of like an allergy. Like if you go into like the grocery store and you're allergic to dogs and there's a dog in the grocery store, are you going to get like pissed at the person because they put their dog in the grocery store in a public place? No, but that's why I'm saying this as well. You're like, well, I have allergies, and like you just can't have like a dog. It's a public place. Yes, you have to take responsibility for that allergy. When you go out into the world, sometimes you're going to come across a dog and it's going to suck and you're going to get a little sick, and you have to be the one to heal yourself. It's not the other person's responsibility to feel better.
Yeah, they're not going to run out of the store with their dog. Right. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Right,
I didn't know that you were allergic, you random stranger. Like, sorry. 100%. Sure, people can be considerate, but it's like, yeah, you're the one individual that has that allergy. Right. So sorry. Yeah. Wear a face mask. Do what you got to do. But like, don't make that everybody else's problem.
Right. 100%. And I think kind of in that like mental health like culture on social media and therapy speak, it kind of does then become that thing as well. It's like it's everyone else's responsibility to make sure that I feel good, that I don't feel triggered, that it's a safe space, and obviously in an ideal, beautiful unicorns and rainbows world, sure, why not? But also we exist in social settings because we need that to be challenged, to grow, to expand. We don't.
Yeah. Why do you want to be 60 still triggered by the same thing that
we don't
you
always
haven't
need a
healed
safe
from,
space? Sometimes you need a not so safe space. Sometimes you need like
Within reason. We're talking about mentally unsafe, but not like destructive. Please don't put yourself in like a war zone. Oh my
No,
goodness.
obviously, but like, yeah, it's not supposed to be like safe and kumbaya all day long, all life long. You know, that's just not how we're supposed to exist as humans. We don't thrive in those settings. It ebbs and flows, right? And so, like with this mental health culture, it's like it's existing, or it's like the narrative is in a way. It's like we should all like cultivate this world where everyone is perfectly like accommodated for and like
catered, coddled, if you will. That's why all the boomers say we're soft. Back in their day.
Yeah, well, they have their problems too. Right?
We have to get into that right now. That's not what we're talking about.
But yeah, no, that's definitely something to be made clear. It's not as if you don't like reach out to your like community for like aid or assistance or a place to go to for like emotional support, et cetera, et cetera. But like there is an aspect of that. There's a balance there where it's like at the end of the day, you are the only one who can help yourself, and in your friends, your family, your therapist, people, whatever, can provide you as much support as possible. But at the end of the day, like you're the one that has to take the action to make the change.
And to be completely sure and to be completely clear, the people with mental health, like actual mental health, aren't the ones doing this.
Right.
Let's talk about the people that are actually the ones doing this.
They're a little too busy dealing with their actual bipolar disorder.
Right. To be like,
I don't know.
No, these terms, you're such a narcissist, you don't treat me like, no, we're dealing with actual things. And we're not talking to y'all. We're talking to the people that are utilizing these things out of context. Do you have mental health? Mental health, right? Who can really define what that is these days?
Right. Especially in a world where people are very quick to self-diagnose, including myself. I jokingly self-diagnose myself all the time.
Yeah, you did like 5 times today.
I know, literally.
Hooray!
I don't mean the single minute of it. Whatever.
But it's almost like a performance that these people are putting on. They want to like don the mask of mental health in a way to support their own position in a certain situation. I don't know. It's really hard to put myself in these people's shoes because I don't do things like this.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm just like trying to think about like the type of person that would, like, what are they trying to achieve? What are they trying to accomplish? Or what is achieved? What is accomplished by doing what they're doing?
I think there's a level of like attention and sympathy that you receive in that. And kind of like making it known that you struggle in these ways or whatnot, and whether intentionally or not, whether you in your own mind you feel genuine in that, like that feels good, right? To receive it from like the internet or whomever. So I definitely think there is an aspect of that is at play for sure.
A person that wants a little bit more sympathy, wants to feel maybe better themselves about a situation that happened. Yeah. Instead of just like, oh, I chose wrong and that really hurt me, and dealing with it, being like trying to find and grasp at the ways that maybe the experience was.
Yeah, it's their way of like trying to grasp at some sort of understanding, right? That is their attempt at that, which it's understandable, right?
Understandable, a little natural even, if you would. Yeah. But it's the performative like victimization that people are often clinging to, whereas like now in that desire for sympathy and empathy, to be like the victim of a situation, being the lower hand, kind of gives you like this sense of superiority to other people. Like you're in the right now because this thing happened to you, not something that you were participating in. It's like, oh, if you were dating a narcissist and he was like abusing you, then whatever happened wasn't your fault. Right. So you don't have to look at that.
And
you don't have to deal with that.
Those victims who are victims of narcissists, it isn't their fault.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're just claiming a person to be, and they're not actually, it's like, you are one, disrespecting the people that actually deal with that. Firstly, secondly, you're not giving your own self the opportunity to explore what was actually happening.
Yeah.
And like, I think you might have mentioned this before, you're not, if you don't give yourself the opportunity to explore what's actually going on, you don't have an opportunity to grow from it. You don't have an opportunity to heal, move forward, and do all the things that are required to make you a more actualized human being.
Right. Yeah, no, I 100% agree. 100% agree with that.
I have a list.
Oh, yes, the list.
15. Maybe we won't do all 15.
Okay. Ooh, 15.
Right, yeah, it's a lot. But
Yeah.
these are just things that you hear all the time on the internet that I want to create a different alternative for.
Okay.
You know, like, it's not this.
Maybe.
It's that. It might look like this, but it's probably this. How many, let's look it up right now. How many narcissists are like in America? Right?
How many documented narcissists are in America? Oh, no.
Are there in the US? It's the first search. All right. So generously,
Yeah.
giving the most generous classification percentage,
Yeah.
5%
Okay.
of people are narcissists, and it can be as low as 0.5%.
Okay.
Your chances of meeting a narcissist are not very high.
Right.
So if you are one of those unlucky people that just so happen to run into one, are you though?
Well, I will say this. Like, there can be an argument made for not every narcissistic human goes to therapy and gets diagnosed with said like behavioral disorder. So is that number like more? Potentially. Do I think it's like 50% of the population? No.
Yes, and it's all men.
Right. Oh, no.
They're all narcissistic.
And mothers, apparently. Yeah.
Narcissistic mothers.
Yeah, 20-year-old men and mothers. They're all narcissists.
They're all narcissists. Jesus Christ. 75% of the population.
Right. Yeah, so like you said, like it's not like the likelihood that you're maybe running into someone who's like diagnosably like a narcissist. Maybe not entirely the case. But that being said, you want to go down the list, you say?
First phrase. This just doesn't align with me. This just isn't something that I can do, alignment. Instead of you being so quick to determine what does or does not align with you, maybe it's just something that like makes you uncomfortable. Is it really completely opposed to who you are as a person, or maybe is it just something you don't agree with? Right.
Or something that you're maybe using that term to like avoid some like necessary uncomfortability in life. Where you're like, oh, well, it just doesn't align with like my being.
Yeah, you know what doesn't align with me? Paying bills. I still got to do that. So let's go from there, right? Let's keep it real.
Right.
Let's keep it real. Sorry, Uncle Sam. Paying taxes just doesn't align with me.
Yeah, it doesn't align with my current goals.
It's like
my current financial goals. Paying rent doesn't really align.
No, they'll kick you out immediately. Yeah. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Extreme, but
are they narcissistic? Or are they just 21?
Right.
Yeah,
kind of like at least from what I see out in the world of like specifically women who will call like dudes like, oh, he's just like a narcissist, etc. I wonder sometimes whether it's more like, okay, or is he just like a 20-something-year-old dude who's not really focused on like having like a serious relationship, is just trying to like have sex, focus on his career, hang out with his boys.
Have a good time.
And
I'm here for a good time, not a long time.
Right. Right. And like maybe he didn't communicate enough with you at all. Not to say that this person wasn't doing anything wrong in this interaction, but are they like this like, diabolical like narcissist who doesn't care about anyone else but themselves? Maybe not. Maybe he doesn't care about anyone but himself right now. But like that doesn't necessarily like mean that he's a narcissist.
Yeah.
Maybe he just doesn't want to be with you.
That's a tough pill to swallow. Maybe
Also-
he's not a narcissist. He just didn't want you.
Yeah,
Yikes.
maybe.
Okay, for sure.
Maybe that.
For sure. And let's stop putting all this pressure on these children, these
Right.
super young adults. Like, they're not going to communicate effectively. They're not going to want to be with you just right at the bat. You might have to fight for their attention. Like, that's just a natural situation.
I mean, look, I'll say this. Like, I do think if you're like a 25-year-old dude, like, and you have a hard time, like, I think you're a grown enough adult to like know, like, you know, maybe I should be doing better. Like, maybe I know how to communicate better, etc. I don't want to like say that like there's like, oh, you're in your 20s, you're so young, like you don't know any better. I think like there's tools out there for you to know better for sure.
These TikTok tools that tell you all about these terminologies.
Exactly. But like also at the same time, I think where I'm coming from in the examples that I'm giving is that like don't expect maybe like a 20-something-year-old person to always like want like something as serious or like committed as maybe you are looking for.
Or to have it all together all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Lord knows I didn't.
For real.
And this is one of my favorite ones that people are always talking about. Weaponized incompetence. Is it weaponized incompetence? Or have you not communicated your need effectively enough?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sure, he should know maybe to take the dish into the sink.
Right.
But is he like doing that intentionally to like
Yeah, there definitely
stress you out?
is an air of like, you know, yeah, that one's definitely a hard one because at least for me, because that hits a nerve for me for sure as a woman. And so it's definitely one of those things of like, okay, how like, and I think that one is kind of like based on how much like communication have you actually provided for then it to then become like this sort of like weaponized like incompetence, right? If it's something maybe that hasn't been communicated at all, maybe for whatever reason, it was something that he or she growing up didn't ever really have to worry about. Maybe they didn't have to really worry about cleaning the house like at all. So like them,
Filthy.
you know, I don't know, people, especially like in LA, you meet a lot of people with wealthy parents and like they have cleaning ladies, you know, they just never have to worry about really making their bed or something like that. So it's not something that like is annoying for
Is
sure.
making the bed a deal breaker for you?
No, I don't make my bed. And I was raised to make my bed. So she fell off. Ooh.
Jackie, don't listen to this. You did a good job.
I know, and I haven't cleaned my baseboards in months too. Damn.
Baseboards, damn.
Mother would be
I know
so
your mom.
disappointed.
Like your mom's rolling in her sleep.
Yeah, literally.
Jesus Christ.
Literally. So yeah, like I think for me at least, that's something that like I guess like I can understand if it's at a point where it's like, you know, there's been a healthy amount of communication. But then at the same time, it's like, okay, as a woman, it's like, well, we learn these things. We know to do these things. So why is it that you don't know to do these things? Because I know this term is specifically used in the context of women saying men use weaponized incompetence often.
To do what though? To make your life harder?
Well, I
Or,
don't
like,
know that
trying
it's
not
also,
to do something.
I don't know
There
that
is
it's
a
always meant
context.
intentionally. Like in the sense, like I don't think when people are using this term, they think that men are like walking like through the kitchen, seeing the dishes, being like, she would want me to clean that, but I'm going to pretend like I didn't see it and didn't know. I don't think that women are thinking it's that. It's that it's like it's more of a thing where it's like, oh, well, I'm just not aware. I'm just not aware of these things. And it's like, well, you live in this house too, right? Like at the end of the day, like we are both living here and have our laundry. Like we have dirty clothes. We eat food off of these plates. Like how are you unaware? Does
The
that make
thing
sense?
that I see it used as like when, like, let's assume that it is communicated and the dude does it. The incompetence part that ends up being weaponized is it's not done to specifications. So you like your clothes and your laundry separated by colors and by garments, right? You tell your husband to do the laundry, he does it, but he dumps everything in. So you're never going to ask him to do the laundry again. Weaponized incompetence.
I see.
But it's like, maybe in his brain, he's not thinking about it like that. Maybe it's just he's like, wow, she wants me to do laundry. This is the most effective and efficient way to do it. Boop. And those type of things, those little intricacies that we raise to do things a certain way need to be explained to people.
Yeah.
I have a crazy preference for how my dishwasher is stacked.
Okay.
So that's why I hate when people do my dishes, because they stack the dishwasher all crazy. It's like, no, you got to put the big bowls at the bottom so you stack it so it's all clean effectively and do But like, not everybody grew up with a dishwasher.
Yeah.
Most people have to wash those dishes and stack them up and dry them at the same time.
Right.
I'm not going to be... Oh, see, this is what I mean. Weaponized incompetence. You don't do things the way that's supposed to. Now I have to do it right. It's like,
yeah.
Or are they just raised differently? You know?
Yeah. No, I definitely see what you're saying. I hope you see what I'm saying too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
We both see what each other are saying.
Ooh.
Communication, eh? What else? Is it emotional labor? Or do you just have to communicate and explain yourself? Like, sure, you can say you're not going to do the emotional labor of having to explain these things, but how the heck am I supposed to know what's going on in your brain?
Yeah.
If you feel so slighted every time you have to explain something that I may or may not understand.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely hear you on that.
I'm not going to do the emotional labor of having to explain that to you.
Because I'm trying to like think of like what situations like or like exampents those are used in.
It's used in racism conversations.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Like I'm not like I'm not going to educate you on these topics. Like Google is free.
Yeah,
like that
exactly.
sort of like commentary. Okay.
Which in that context, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not your responsibility to change institutional racism, sure.
Totally not.
But when your boyfriend wants to know what's going on with you, like, I can't. It's not my responsibility to tell you what's going on.
Well, no, I wonder if it's like the emotional labor, like when it's using that, it's more so in like, I'm the one who has to like facilitate these conversations to have like these more emotional talks and like carry that responsibility to like, I don't know, something of that nature. Less of
to
like,
which I say, why not? If that's the situation that has to happen, are they participating in it?
Yeah.
Or whenever you try to bring that up, they're like super resistant. They don't want to engage in those type of conversations.
Yeah, no, I definitely think like, I don't know how much like I believe this for this specific scenario, but I'm going to say it. Sometimes like you and your partner, like in a dynamic, like sometimes, okay. What if like there's a world like you are always the partner who always has to say sorry first. It's like that's just kind of how it is. You're always the one who says sorry first. And that's really annoying. And you kind of have to sit with yourself and be like, okay, like am I, and this is kind of like an extreme example, maybe not super extreme, but
I feel like that's perfectly
like,
reasonable, actually.
Yeah. You kind of have to sit with yourself and be like, okay, is this something that like bothers me so much to the degree that it's a deal breaker. I'm not willing to be with someone who's not willing to like apologize first, or do I have to just accept that this person has a hard time or isn't the person to come to the table first, but they do when I do approach them. They're all really receptive to it. And then they start talking, they start apologizing and it does become like a really good conversation. I do feel understood by them and all these sorts of things. And it sucks that I'm the one that has to like come and start the conversation, but it is good that the conversation happens. Obviously it's like, if it's a situation where the person's like completely resistant and all these sorts of things, that's a whole other topic. But like, if you're the partner who has to start the conversation first all the time, like you kind of like, not that you have to accept that, but maybe in order to be with that person, it's like, okay, this is what it is. So
that's not necessarily like the worst predicament,
right?
Unless they're the ones at fault. Why am I apologizing to you when you offended me?
Yeah. Or I guess maybe like a better example, like I'm trying to think of a better example. Maybe I'm trying to think of one that's not so like gendered either.
It's okay, man.
I don't know, like always like being the partner who like you're always a partner who cooks, you know, like
guilty.
You know, yeah, exactly. See, there you go. It's like, okay, like
but she can't cook. Weaponized incompetence.
Right. Like that can be like an annoyance, but it's like, oh, like,
That's
well,
very
you know what?
triggering for me.
I'll be the partner who cooks. Like if you'll do the dishes, you know what I mean? I'll be the cook of like of this relationship. If like you'll help me with the dishes after.
Which is a perfectly
know?
fair,
Yeah.
fair symbiotic relationship.
Right. Exactly. And it's kind of just like, I don't know. What are you willing to work with?
Right. Is it a lack of respect, or do they just not exist exactly the way they want you? Do you want them to?
Maybe they don't respect you. And why is that? Why does that like, for me, I'm like, maybe they just don't respect you, and that's fine. Move on.
You want your partner to respect you, though.
Oh, your partner. I thought it was just like a dating
Just a random person. Maybe they don't respect you. Move on. Like, no,
not a random person.
Maybe you want them. Maybe you want to be with them, and you feel like they don't respect you.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen any like. I haven't seen that word used like incorrectly, so I can't really give any like input on that.
Fair enough. Is it something that you need, qualified as your needs, or is it something that you would prefer to happen?
Yeah. I feel like that kind of exists similarly in the realm of like boundaries of like, these are just like my needs. And it's like,
Your wants, maybe?
right. Your wants? Do we need that? I don't know.
Need that? I mean, you need air. Like, do you need this? Like, so you need me to like see you at 6 p.m. every Thursday? Do you
Right.
need that?
Yeah.
For sure.
Every Thursday.
I don't know, man. Is he avoidant?
Or does he not like you?
Or does he hate you?
Or do they just hate you?
Is he avoidant, or have you not cultivated an environment conducive to him opening up?
Oh, that's a big one.
Maybe every time he tries to open up, you're not like catching those emotional bids. You invalidate him. You try to correct his feeling. You're like, maybe you're not supposed to feel that way. It's like, oh, well.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to talk anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe you overreact every time he says something bothers him, and now he has to deal with that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like a hard one to identify with yourself and a hard pill to swallow as well. Of like, yeah, like I need this person to open up and like be vulnerable with me, but yeah, are you creating in this context like a safe space is necessary, right? Like, are you creating a space in which they feel safe to do so? And like that then requires like, okay, well, it's not their problem per se that they're not opening up, but maybe your inability to like create that space for them to do so, especially when it's like you guys are maybe getting to know one another, right? Have to show like, oh, I'm a trustworthy person to confide in.
Exactly.
Or you know.
And then I was listening to a video the other day that was talking about how like men that are good, people also are always talking about like how men are nonchalant, but the men that you actually want to date and want to be in a relationship with aren't going to be the ones that are going to explode at you and like put you in your place and do all that stuff. If you come to them with like very antagonistic energy, they're going to interact with you in what they understand to be the safest way possible.
Yeah.
So what that usually looks like is shutting down. And like while you're being whatever you are, emotional, whatever, they're just like taking it and not really reacting to it. It's like, yeah, that can be avoidant. Would you rather him engage you in that space?
Yeah.
No, that's not what you want. But now you're punishing them for being like a safe space and being a nice person that's not going to like treat you like shit by acting the way you act, when you really just need to like be calm with them, create a space for them to talk to you and be whatever you need to be and not have them shutting down.
Yeah. No, that definitely is like a...
That one's more common than not.
Yeah.
Because I'm like that.
I mean, but that is interesting though, because sometimes like a man's like calmness or like silence is a like means of, I don't know if I want to say manipulation, but definitely creates like frustration within like the women participating in that interaction.
Like, why aren't you reacting? Why
Right,
does it
like
affect you the way it affects
yeah,
me?
exactly. Where that kind of like, it's what we were talking about earlier of like, or was it this episode? I don't even know anymore. It's all bleeding together. Sorry, guys.
This is a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, professional. Where it's like, you know, it's used as like a like you're withholding something, and like vulnerability or like participation in something because you know it's going to like upset that person, right? So that one's like a hard one for me because I definitely see that dynamic happen in like the opposite respect where like the woman in a relationship is like trying to like, let's open up, let's have a conversation, like I'm feeling things, like engage in these feelings with me, talk them through with me. Exactly. And it's like,
you're feeling what?
right, stonewalled. Nothing. Given
So
nothing.
yeah, that is the difference between stonewalling and shutting down.
Right.
You shut down in response to something, you stonewalled to like cause a reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Slippery slope. That's all the relevant ones.
Those
right?
are all the
interesting ones. Do you see anyone that you want to contextualize?
I mean, I think we already kind of said something about like triggering.
Yeah.
Like like people being like, I'm triggered.
Yeah. Own your triggers.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I had an interaction recently where this girl actually did struggle with crazy mental health bullshit. And she was also psychologically informed and trained. That was her major and her practice.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to talk to people like that because on the one hand, in your desire to care and understand what they're going through, this is a phenomenon that they're experiencing. And instead of interacting directly with the way that they're feeling, the emotion that they're feeling, they will use the terms as a means to separate themselves from the situation because that's the only way they can communicate effectively. Otherwise, it just won't happen.
Yeah.
Right. And experiencing that, I still felt the same way because at the end of the day, regardless of the situation, it's like the position that you have with these people that you have these conflicts with, usually someone that you're closer to, whether you're dating them, whether they're your friends, whether you're family, they have an emotional impact on you.
Yeah.
And in that emotional impact, you would want and expect and hope that they can come to you and just like be really real with you and just communicate. If something's bothering you, like, tell me, I'm all right with it. Like, we can talk about it. At least me specifically, I'm very open to the conversation. Like, let's talk, let's get to the most effective solution. But when you're like, oh, this is just what it is and this is how it is, and then you use the terminology to support what you're saying, it just completely removes any option of that happening. And I don't think that's what people want.
Yeah.
Like, even if that's what happens, I think people want a more connective thing.
Yeah.
They want more understanding. They want more relationship with people. They want more love for people.
Yeah.
And trying to communicate that need in a removed way is just not effective. You have to be vulnerable, even if it's scary, even if it's dangerous, even if it's risky. You have to lead with vulnerability all the time. That's like the only right answer because more often than not, especially if this person cares about you, if you scream at a person that you're in pain, if they care about you, they're going to want to help you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you tell a person that these are your boundaries and this is how you feel and you don't have the bandwidth to exist around them, you completely shut off any possibility of connection that you could possibly have with a person.
Right. Like, what if they maybe didn't even know that you were going through something and like maybe they were just like opening up, they were talking, going through whatever and like didn't realize and like, I was like, oh, want to be there for you. Like, how can I be there for you? You kind of like cut off that communication or that ability for them to do so, or make it at least harder for them to do so for sure.
But if they wanted to, they would, right?
Right. If they could read your mind.
Hey, yeah. But yeah, that's all I kind of have to say about that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be more effective if we stop playing the role of therapists in a deaf pursuit to try to gain the upper hand on someone and just like be more authentic, be real, be vulnerable and in your face.
It does more to like, instead of just making a blanket statement of like, this is what it is, or like, especially particularly with like the using therapy speak to like identify or diagnose someone as something, instead of doing that, thinking about like just going into depth about how their behavior might be wrong or it might have wronged you or has been full, etc., to them or to yourself or to your friends, etc., versus just, well, they were a narcissist, you know, like they like did this, so they're a narcissist. But maybe just doing more introspection on like the behavior on the why instead of just using a blanket term.
And being curious and inquisitive. You get farther asking people questions than you do making generalities and statements.
I 100% agree.
But that's all we have to say about that one.
Yep.
Stop using therapy speak.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to use therapy speak, become a therapist.
Right. Get a license.
You only have two options. Either you stop or you make it professional.
Those are the only options we're giving.
Get that bag, get that bread, get that head, and leave.
What? Okay.
I forget what song that's from.
Peace out.
What song is that?
I have no idea.
Meg the Stallion, right?
Maybe?
Probably.
Gosh, so long ago it feels like. Anyways.
But yeah, so well, that's that on that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. Let us know. Are you a person that is usually using those terminologies? And in which context do you use them? Are you invalidating ex relationships, trying to control friendships, being mad, narcissistic, and controlling yourself?
Wow.
Or are you a trained professional and you're using this to articulate your situation and your people?
Sure.
Let us know.
That being said, let us know on like our social medias and all that good stuff at we.theintellectuals, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that good stuff. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
As always.
And at the end of the day, I'm Jem.
And I'm Renee.
And we're the Intellectuals signing off until next time.
Bye.
Peace out.